This is the story of the great war that Rikki, Ticki, Tavi fought single-handed through the bathrooms of the big bungalow in Sagauri cantonment. Dazi, the tailor bird, helped him, and Chuchundra, the muskrat, who never comes out into the middle of the floor but always creeps around by the wall, gave him advice. But Rikki Ticki did the real fighting. He was a mongoose, rather like a little cat in his fur and his tail, but quite like a weasel in his head and his habits. His eyes and the end of his restless nose were pink. He could scratch himself anywhere he pleased, with any leg, front or back, that he chose to use. He could fluff up his tail till it looked like a bottle brush, and his war cry as he scuttled through the long grass was, "Rikki, Ticki, 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 Tick, Tick." One day, a high summer flood washed him out of the burrow where he lived with his father and mother and carried him kicking and clucking down a roadside ditch. He found a little wisp of grass floating there and clung to it till he lost his senses. When he revived, he was lying in the hot sun on the middle of a garden path, very draggled indeed, and a small boy was saying,
"Here's a dead mongoose. Let's have a funeral."
His mother said,
"No, let's take him in and dry him. Perhaps he isn't really dead."
They took him into the house, and a big man picked him up between his finger and thumb and said he was not dead but half choked. So they wrapped him in cotton wool and warmed him, and he opened his eyes and sneezed.
The big man said,
"Now, don't frighten him, and we'll see what he'll do."
"The motto of all the mongoose family is, run and find out." And Rikki Ticki was a true mongoose. He looked at the cotton wool, decided that it wasn't good to eat, ran all round the table, sat up and put his fur in order, scratched himself, and jumped on the small boy's shoulder. But his father said,
"Don't be frightened, Teddy. That's his way of making friends."
"Ouch, he's tickling under my chin."
Rikki Ticki looked down between the boy's collar and neck, snuffed at his ear, and climbed down to the floor, where he sat rubbing his nose. They gave him a little piece of raw meat. Rikki Ticki liked it immensely, and when it was finished, he went out into the veranda and sat in the sun and fluffed up his fur to make it dry to the roots. Then he felt better and said to himself,
"There are more things to find out about in this house than all my family could find out in all their lives. I shall certainly stay and find out."
At nightfall, he ran into Teddy's nursery to watch how kerosene lamps were lighted. And when Teddy went to bed, Rikki Ticki climbed up too and was awake on the pillow when Teddy's mother and father came in the last thing to look at their boy.
"I don't like that. He may bite the child."
"He'll do no such thing. Teddy's safer with that little beast than if he had a bloodhound to watch him. If a snake came into the nursery
"Oh,
now..."
don't think of anything so awful."
Early in the morning, Rikki Ticki came to early breakfast on the veranda, riding on Teddy's shoulder. And they gave him banana and some boiled eggs, and he sat on all their laps, one after the other. Then Rikki Ticki went into the garden to see what was to be seen. It was a large garden, only half cultivated. Rikki Ticki licked his lips and said,
"This is a splendid hunting ground."
and his tail grew bottle-brushy at the thought of it, and he scuttled up and down the garden, snuffing here and there, till he heard very sorrowful voices in a thorn bush. It was Dazi, the tailor bird, and his wife. They had made a beautiful nest by pulling two big leaves together and stitching them up the edges with fibers, and had filled the hollow with cotton and downy fluff. The nest swayed to and fro, and they sat on the rim and cried as Rikki Ticki asked,
"What is the matter?"
"Oh, we are very miserable. One of our babies fell out of the nest yesterday, and Nag ate him."
That is very sad. But I am a stranger here. Who is Nag?
"Who is Nag? I am Nag. The great god Brahm put his mark upon all our people when the first cobra spread his hood to keep the sun off Brahm as he slept. Look and be afraid."
Then inch by inch out of the grass rose up the head and spread hood of Nag, the big black cobra, and he was 5 feet long from tongue to tail. And he looked at Rikki Ticki with the wicked snake's eyes that never change their expression, whatever the snake may be thinking of. "Well, Nag, marks or no marks, do you think it is right for you to eat fledglings out of a nest?"
"Let us talk. You eat eggs. Why should not I eat birds?"
Suddenly, Dazi the tailor bird sang out, "Behind you! Look behind you!" Rikki Ticki knew better than to waste time in staring. He jumped up in the air as high as he could go, and just under him whizzed by the head of Nagaina, Nag's wicked wife. He came down almost across her back, and if he had been an old mongoose, he would have known that then was the time to break her back with one bite. But he was afraid of the terrible lashing return stroke of the cobra. He bit indeed, but did not bite long enough, and he jumped clear of the whisking tail, leaving Nagaina torn and angry. Nag hissed viciously.
Wicked, wicked Darcy!
And lashed up as high as he could reach towards the nest in the thorn bush. But Darcy had built it out of reach of snakes, and it only swayed to and fro. Rikki Ticki felt his eyes growing red and hot. When a mongoose's eyes grow red, he is angry. And he sat back on his tail and hind legs like a little kangaroo and looked all round him and shuddered with rage. But Nag and Nagaina had disappeared into the grass.
Rikki Ticki knew he was a young mongoose, and it made him all the more pleased to think that he had managed to escape a blow from behind. It gave him confidence in himself, and when Teddy came running down the path, Rikki Ticki was ready to be petted.
Teddy carried him off to bed. But as soon as Teddy was asleep, Rikki Ticki went off for his nightly walk round the house, and in the dark he ran up against Chuchundra the muskrat creeping round by the wall.
Don't kill me, Rikki Ticki! Don't kill me!
Do you think a snake killer kills muskrats?
My cousin Chua the rat told me.
Told you what?
Nag is everywhere, Rikki Ticki.
Tell me. Quick, Chuchundra, or I'll bite you.
I never had spirit enough to run out into the middle of the room. Shh. I mustn't tell you anything. Can't you hear, Rikki Ticki?
What's the matter?
Rikki Ticki listened. The house was as still, but he thought he could just catch the faintest scratch in the world, a noise as faint as that of a wasp walking on a window pane, the dry scratch of a snake's scales on brickwork.
That's Nag or Nagaina, and he's crawling into the bathroom sluice.
He stole off to Teddy's bathroom, but there was nothing there, and then to Teddy's mother's bathroom. At the bottom of the smooth plaster wall, there was a brick pulled out to make a sluice for the bathwater, and as Rikki Ticki stole in by the masonry curb where the bath is put, he heard Nag and Nagaina whispering together outside in the moonlight. Nagaina said,
When the house is emptied of people, he will have to go away, and then the garden will be our own again. Go in quietly.
But are you sure that there is anything to be gained by killing the people?
Everything. When there were no people in the bungalow, did we have any mongoose in the garden? So long as the bungalow is empty, we are king and queen. And remember that as soon as our eggs in the melon bed hatch, our children will need room and quiet.
I had not thought of that. I will kill the big man and his wife and the child if I can, and come away quietly. Rikki Ticki tingled all over with rage and hatred at this, and then Nag's head came through the sluice, and his 5 feet of cold body followed it. Angry as he was, Rikki Ticki was very frightened as he saw the size of the big cobra. Nag coiled himself up, raised his head, and looked into the bathroom in the dark, and Rikki could see his eyes glitter, and he thought,
Now if I kill him here, Nagaina will know. And if I fight him on the open floor, the odds are in his favor. What am I to do?
Nag waved to and fro, and then Rikki Ticki heard him drinking from the biggest water jar that was used to fill the bath.
Nag said to himself,
That is good. Now, but when he comes in to bathe in the morning, he will not have a stick. I shall wait here till he comes. Nagaina, do you hear me? I shall wait here in the cool till daytime.
There was no answer from outside, so Rikki Ticki knew Nagaina had gone away.
Nag coiled himself down, coil by coil, round the bulge at the bottom of the water jar, and Rikki Ticki stayed still as death. After an hour, he began to move, muscle by muscle, toward the jar. Nag was asleep, and Rikki Ticki looked at his big back, wondering which would be the best place for a good hold.
If I don't break his back at the first jump, he can still fight. And if he fights, oh, Rikki.
He looked at the thickness of the neck below the hood, but that was too much for him, and a bite near the tail would only make Nag savage.
It must be the head above the hood. And when I am once there, I must not let go.
Then he jumped. The head was lying a little clear of the water jar, under the curve of it, and as his teeth met, Rikki braced his back against the bulge of the red earthenware to hold down the head. This gave him just 1 second's purchase, and he made the most of it. Then he was battered to and fro as a rat is shaken by a dog, to and fro on the floor, up and down, and round in great circles. But his eyes were red, and he held on as the body cartwhipped over the floor, upsetting the tin dipper and the soapdish and the flesh brush, and banged against the tin side of the bath. As he held, he closed his jaws tighter and tighter, for he made sure he would be banged to death, and for the honor of his family he preferred to be found with his teeth locked. He was dizzy, aching, and he felt shaken to pieces when something went off like a thunderclap just behind him. A hot wind knocked him senseless, and red fire singed his fur. The big man had been wakened by the noise and had fired both barrels of a shotgun into Nag just behind the hood.
Rikki Ticki held on with his eyes shut, and now he was quite sure he was dead. But the head didn't move, and the big man picked him up and said,
"It's the mongoose again, Alice. The little chap has saved our lives now."
Then Teddy's mother came in with a very white face and saw what was left of Nag. And Rikki Ticki dragged himself to Teddy's bedroom and spent half the rest of the night shaking himself tenderly to find out whether he really was broken into 40 pieces, as he fancied.
When morning came, he was very stiff, but well pleased with his doing.
Now I have Nagaina to settle with, and she will be worth some 5 nags, and there's no knowing when the eggs she spoke of will hatch. Goodness, I must go and see Darcy.
Without waiting for breakfast, Rikki Ticki ran to the thorn bush where Darcy was singing a song of triumph at the top of his voice. The news of Nag's death was all over the garden, for the sweeper had thrown the body on the rubbish heap.
Oh, you stupid tuft of feathers, is this the time to sing?
Nag is dead, he's dead, he's dead. The valiant Rikki Ticki caught him by the head and held fast. The big man brought the bang stick, and Nag fell in 2 pieces. He will never eat my babies again.
Oh, that's true enough. But where's Nagaina?
Nagaina came to the bathroom sluice and called for Nag, and Nag came out on the end of a stick, and the sweeper picked him up on the end of a stick and threw him upon the rubbish heap.
Stop singing a minute, Darcy.
For the great, the beautiful Rikki Ticki's sake, I will stop. What is it, O killer of the terrible Nag?
Where is Nagaina?
On the rubbish heap by the stables, mourning for Nag. Great is Rikki Ticki with the white teeth.
Bother my white teeth. Have you ever heard where she keeps her eggs?
In the melon bed, on the end nearest the wall, where the sun strikes nearly all day. She hid them there weeks ago.
Darcy, if you have a grain of sense, you will fly off to the stables and pretend that your wing is broken and let Nagaina chase you away to this bush. I must get to the melon bed, and if I went there now, she'd see me.
Darcy was a feather-brained little fellow who could never hold more than one idea at a time in his head, but his wife was a sensible bird, and she knew that cobras' eggs meant young cobras later on. So she flew off from the nest and left Darcy to keep the babies warm and continue his song about the death of Nag. Darcy was very like a man in some ways. She fluttered in front of Nagaina by the rubbish heap and cried out, "Oh, my wing is broken. The boy in the house threw a stone at me, broke it." Then she fluttered more desperately than ever. Nagaina lifted up her head and hissed.
You warned Rikki Ticki when I would have killed him. Indeed and truly, you've chosen a bad place to be lain in. What is the use of running away? I am sure to catch you. Little fool, look at me.
Darcy's wife knew better than to do that, for a bird who looks at a snake's eyes gets so frightened that she cannot move. Darcy's wife fluttered on, piping sorrowfully and never leaving the ground, and Nagaina quickened her pace. Rikki Ticki heard them going up the path from the stables, and he raced for the end of the melon patch near the wall. There, in the warm litter about the melons, very cunningly hidden, he found 25 eggs, about the size of a bantam's eggs, but with whitish skin instead of shell. And he said,
I wasn't a day too soon.
He could see the baby cobras curled up inside the skin, and he knew that the minute they were hatched, they could each kill a man or a mongoose. He bit off the tops of the eggs as fast as he could, taking care to crush the young cobras, and turned over the litter from time to time to see whether he had missed any. At last, there were only 3 eggs left, and Rikki Ticki began to chuckle to himself when he heard Darcy's wife screaming, "Rikki Ticki! I led Nagaina towards the house, and she has gone into the veranda. Oh, come quickly! She means killing!" Rikki Ticki smashed 2 eggs and tumbled backward down the melon bed with the 3rd egg in his mouth, and scuttled to the veranda as hard as he could put foot to the ground. Teddy and his mother and father were there at early breakfast, but Rikki Ticki saw that they were not eating anything. They sat stone still, and their faces were white. Nagaina was coiled up on the matting by Teddy's chair, within easy striking distance of Teddy's bare leg, and she was swaying to and fro and singing a song of triumph.
Son of The big man that killed Nag. Stay still. I am not ready yet. Wait a little. Keep very still, all you three. If you move, I strike. And if you do not move, I strike. Oh, foolish people who killed my Nag.
Teddy's eyes were fixed on his father.
Daddy.
Sit still, Teddy. You mustn't move, Teddy. Keep still. Then Rikki Ticki came up and cried,
Turn round, Nagaina. Turn and fight.
Without moving her eyes, she said,
All in good time. I will settle my account with you presently. Look at your friends, Rikki Ticki. They are still and white. They are afraid. They dare not move. And if you come a step nearer, I strike.
Rikki Ticki cried out.
Look at your eggs in the melon bed near the wall. Go and look, Nagaina.
The big snake turned half round and saw the egg on the veranda.
Give it to me.
Rikki Ticki put his paws on each side of the egg, and his eyes were blood red.
What price for a snake's egg? For a young cobra? For a young king cobra? For the last, the very last of the brood. The ants are eating all the others down by the melon bed.
Nagaina spun clear round, forgetting everything for the sake of the one egg. And Rikki Ticki saw Teddy's father shoot out a big hand, catch Teddy by the shoulder, and drag him across the little table with the teacups, safe and out of reach of Nagaina. Nagaina saw that she had lost her chance of killing Teddy, and the egg lay between Rikki Ticki's paws.
Give me the egg, Rikki Ticki. Give me the last of my eggs, and I will go away and never come back.
And she lowered her hood.
Yes, you will go away and you will never come back, for you will go to the rubbish heap with Nag. Fight, widow. The big man has gone for his gun. Fight.
Rikki Ticki was bounding all around Nagaina, keeping just out of reach of her stroke, his little eyes like hot coals. Nagaina gathered herself together and flung out at him. Rikki Ticki jumped up and backward. Again and again and again she struck, and each time her head came with a whack on the matting of the veranda, and she gathered herself together like a watch spring. Then Rikki Ticki danced in a circle to get behind her. Nagaina spun round to keep her head to his head, so that the rustle of her tail on the matting sounded like dry leaves blown along by the wind. He had forgotten the egg. It still lay on the veranda, and Nagaina came nearer and nearer to it, till at last, while Rikki Ticki was drawing breath, she caught it in her mouth, turned to the veranda steps, and flew like an arrow down the path, with Rikki Ticki behind her. She headed straight for the long grass by the thorn bush. And as he was running, Rikki Ticki heard Dazi still singing his foolish little song of triumph. But Dazi's wife was wiser. She flew off her nest as Nagaina came along and flapped her wings about Nagaina's head. The instant's delay brought Rikki Ticki up to her, and as she plunged into the rat hole where she and Nag used to live, his little white teeth were clenched on her tail, and he went down with her. And very few mongooses, however wise and old they may be, care to follow a cobra into its hole. It was dark in the hole, and Rikki Ticki never knew when it might open out and give Nagaina room to turn and strike at him. He held on savagely and struck out his feet to act as brakes on the dark slope of the hot, moist earth. And Dazi cried, "It's all over with Rikki Ticki. We must sing his death song. Valiant Rikki Ticki is dead, and Nagaina will surely kill him on the ground." So he sang a very mournful song that he made up on the spur of the minute. And just as he got to the most touching part, the grass quivered again, and Rikki Ticki, covered with dirt, dragged himself out of the hole leg by leg, licking his whiskers. Dazi stopped with a little shout. Rikki Ticki shook some of the dust out of his fur and sneezed.
It is all over. The widow will never come out again.
And that night he ate all that was given to him till he could eat no more, and went to bed on Teddy's shoulder, where Teddy's mother saw him when she came to look late at night. And she said to her husband,
Just think, he saved all our lives.
Rikki Ticki woke with a jump and said,
Oh, it's you. What are you bothering for? All the cobras are dead. And if they weren't, I'm here.